If you're over 60 and your mornings begin the same way they've begun for decades, I want you to pause for just a few minutes and listen carefully to this, because some of the most dangerous strain your heart experiences all day may not happen when you're climbing stairs, exercising, or dealing with stress in the afternoon. It may happen much earlier than that, in the very first hour after you wake up. And for many people, the habits that make that hour riskier don't look dangerous at all. They look normal, ordinary, harmless. In fact, they're the kinds of things millions of adults do every single morning without giving them a second thought. Or temporary food poisoning. What we are discussing is the slow heart attacks are not spread out evenly across the day. For years, doctors and researchers have noticed something very important. Serious cardiovascular events tend to happen more often in the morning, especially in the first few hours after waking. And while no single habit causes a heart attack by itself, certain choices made during that window can place extra strain on a cardiovascular system that's already under natural pressure. That matters even more after 60. Because after 60, your blood vessels are usually less flexible than they were years ago. Blood pressure is more likely to fluctuate, medication timing matters more, dehydration affects you faster, and small routine choices that once felt effortless can begin to interact with your heart and circulation very differently. My name is Dr. Michael, and over the years, one of the patterns I've seen again and again is that many adults are very careful about their heart health in the big obvious ways. They watch their cholesterol, they think about salt, they try to walk more, they take their medications, but almost no one is ever taught to think carefully about the first 30 to 60 minutes of the day as a distinct cardiovascular window. Today I want to walk you through 4 common morning mistakes that can quietly increase heart attack risk after 60, especially if you already have high blood pressure, a history of heart disease, diabetes, or circulation issues. And more importantly, I want to show you the practical adjustments that make mornings safer without turning your life upside down. Stay with me through all 4, because the third mistake tends to be misunderstood by almost everyone. And the fourth is the one I see overlooked most often, even though it may be the simplest one to fix starting tomorrow morning. Before we go into the list itself, you need to understand one key concept, because without it, the rest of this won't fully connect. I call it the morning cardiac stress window. When you're asleep, your body is in a quieter state, your heart rate is lower, your blood pressure usually dips, your breathing is slower, your circulation settles into a nighttime rhythm. Then waking happens, and waking is not passive, it's an active biological event, or temporary food poisoning. What we are discussing is the slow or temporary food poisoning. What we are discussing is the slow or temporary food poisoning. What we are discussing is the slow or temporary food poisoning. What we are discussing is the slow or temporary food poisoning. What we are discussing is the slow. Now imagine that natural internal surge as your baseline. Then imagine adding avoidable stressors right on top of it, standing too fast, skipping hydration, doing something that sharply raises blood pressure, delaying or mishandling a medication routine. All of a sudden, you're not just waking up, you're stacking one strain on top of another during the exact window your cardiovascular system is already working harder than usual. That's why these mistakes matter. This isn't about fear, and it isn't about turning the morning into some rigid medical routine. It's simply about understanding that after 60, the body often benefits from a gentler transition into the day than it did at 30 or 40. The good news is that the fixes are usually simple. They don't require special equipment, expensive supplements, or extreme lifestyle changes. They require awareness, a little consistency, and better timing. Think back for a moment to what mornings used to feel like 10 or 15 years ago. Do you remember waking up and moving immediately without thinking twice? Do you remember not noticing whether you'd had water yet? Do you remember being able to rush through the first part of the day without your body pushing back at all? A lot of people over 60 notice that mornings feel different now, but they never connect those changes to the heart and blood vessels specifically. They just assume this is what aging feels like. Sometimes that's true, but sometimes what they're really experiencing is not age alone. It's a natural morning transition being made harder by a few routine mistakes. Let's go through them one at a time. The first mistake is getting out of bed too quickly. This one sounds almost too simple to matter, which is exactly why people ignore it. Robert was 68 and prided himself on moving fast. Alarm goes off, feet on the floor, straight to the bathroom, straight into the day. To him, slowing down felt unnecessary. Sitting at the edge of the bed for a minute sounded like something only weak or frail people needed to do, but that's not how the body sees it. When you've been lying flat and then suddenly stand up, gravity causes blood to shift downward almost immediately. Your cardiovascular system has to respond fast. Blood vessels tighten, heart rate adjusts. Blood flow has to remain steady enough to keep your brain supplied while your body changes position. In a younger system, that adjustment is usually smooth and quick. After 60, it's often less efficient. This is one reason dizziness on standing becomes more common with age. Some people feel a brief wave of lightheadedness. Others notice their vision dims for a second. Some feel unsteady. Some feel their heart race very briefly. These are signs that the transition happened faster than the body could comfortably handle. Now place that sudden posture shift inside the morning cardiac stress window we just talked about. Your blood pressure is already rising. Your heart is already working harder than it was during sleep. And then you're asking the body to execute a rapid circulation adjustment on top of that. That's the issue. The concern isn't standing up itself. It's the speed and timing. The practical fix is simple. When you wake up, don't launch into the day immediately. Sit on the edge of the bed for a minute or two. Let your feet touch the floor. Take a few slow breaths. Give your circulation a moment to catch up before you fully stand. That tiny pause may sound insignificant, but for some people it changes the entire feel of the morning. Less dizziness, less shakiness, less of that strange rush that people often dismiss as normal. If you consistently feel faint, unsteady, or notice your heart pounding when you stand in the morning, that is worth bringing up with your doctor. Sometimes it's just dehydration or timing. Sometimes medication adjustments are part of the picture. Either way, it deserves attention. The mistake most people make is assuming that moving fast is always healthier than moving gently. But after 60, the smarter approach is often the one that works with the body instead of trying to prove something to it. The second mistake is reaching for caffeine before your body has stabilized. For many people, coffee feels non-negotiable. It feels like the official start of the day. And to be clear, this isn't about telling everyone over 60 to stop drinking coffee. That's not the message. For many adults, moderate coffee intake fits just fine into a heart-healthy life. The issue, once again, is timing. Elaine was 71 and drank coffee almost immediately after waking every morning. Not after water, not after a few minutes, often before she was fully awake. She thought of it as harmless habit, maybe even helpful. But what most people don't realize is that caffeine can temporarily raise blood pressure and stimulate the nervous system, especially in the short window after waking when the body is already naturally activated. Your morning rise in blood pressure and stress hormones happens whether you drink coffee or not. Caffeine then adds another push. For some people, that extra push is mild. For others, especially people sensitive to caffeine, people with poorly controlled blood pressure, or people drinking strong coffee on an empty stomach, the effect can be more noticeable. Again, the point isn't that coffee is inherently dangerous. The point is that stacking caffeine directly on top of the body's natural wake-up surge may not be the kindest move for an older cardiovascular system. This is especially true if your morning coffee is paired with rushing, poor sleep, dehydration, or anxiety. In that case, you are not dealing with one single stressor. You're layering several at once. The practical fix is not dramatic. Wake up first. Hydrate first. Give your body a little time to transition before caffeine enters the picture. Even waiting 20 to 30 minutes can be a meaningful improvement for some people. And if you know you get jittery, flushed, or notice palpitations after morning coffee, that's useful information, not something to brush aside. Some people do better drinking coffee after at least a little food. Some do better with a smaller first cup, some do better shifting caffeine slightly later in the morning. The exact answer varies, but the principle stays the same. Don't pile unnecessary stimulation onto a cardiovascular system that's already ramping up. One of the most useful things a family member can notice, by the way, is whether someone seems especially shaky, breathless, flushed, or uneasy right after their first coffee but settles later. That timing matters. Doctors can work with specific patterns much more easily than with vague descriptions like, "something just seems off." If you take blood pressure medication, or you already know your readings run high in the morning, it's worth asking your physician whether your caffeine timing should be adjusted. That's not overreacting, that's being thoughtful. And that brings us to the third mistake, the one many people never suspect at all. The third mistake is jumping into physical exertion too soon after waking. This one catches people off guard because exercise is healthy, walking is healthy, movement is healthy. All true. But healthy actions still have timing, and after 60, timing matters. George was 73 and believed he was doing exactly the right thing by waking up and immediately heading outside for a brisk uphill walk. He liked the discipline of it. It made him feel productive. The problem was not the walking itself. The problem was that he was placing sudden physical demand on top of a body that had only just entered that morning surge state. When you exercise, even mildly, your heart rate increases, blood pressure rises to meet the moment, your muscles demand more oxygen, your heart has to pump harder. Under the right conditions, that is beneficial. But if you go from sleep to exertion too abruptly, you may be compressing too many circulatory demands into too little time. This is particularly important for people with known coronary artery disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, or a history of chest discomfort with effort. In those individuals, the line between healthy movement and poorly timed exertion becomes more important, not less. Most people think morning exercise is always better simply because it's consistent, but consistency and timing are not the same thing. The issue here is not whether movement is good, the issue is whether your cardiovascular system has had time to wake up gradually before you ask it to perform. The practical fix is to create a buffer. Give your body a softer start. Wake up, sit up, hydrate, move around the house a little, let the circulation settle into wakefulness. If you exercise in the morning, consider beginning with very gentle movement rather than heading immediately into brisk walking, heavy yard work, climbing, or anything that spikes effort quickly. Even a 5 to 10 minute easing in period can matter. A slower pace at the beginning matters. Warm-up matters. Breathing matters. The more age, medication, and cardiovascular history are part of the picture, the more this matters. And there is another layer here many people miss. Some adults wake up already somewhat dehydrated, then add caffeine, then go straight into activity. Now you've got reduced fluid balance, nervous system stimulation, and physical exertion arriving almost together. That combination may feel normal because it's familiar, but familiar and ideal are not the same thing. If you ever notice chest tightness, unusual shortness of breath, arm discomfort, jaw discomfort, sudden weakness, or a strange heavy feeling when moving early in the morning, do not dismiss that as simply getting older. Those symptoms deserve prompt medical attention. The mistake most people make is assuming that a healthy habit is safe in every form, at every intensity, at every time of day. But after 60, how you begin something can matter nearly as much as whether you do it. Now we come to the fourth mistake. And in many ways, this is the most important one because it often goes completely unnoticed. The fourth mistake is not drinking water soon after waking. This is the one I see skipped more often than almost anything else. And unlike some of the earlier mistakes, this is not about avoiding an added burden. It's about giving the body something helpful right when it needs it. Overnight, you go many hours without fluid intake. Even if you sleep well, you're still losing water through breathing and normal body processes. By morning, many people are mildly dehydrated without feeling thirsty enough to recognize it. And that matters because blood volume and circulation are affected by hydration status. A mildly dehydrated body may have to work a little harder during the very same hours when blood pressure is climbing and the cardiovascular system is transitioning into active mode. For someone younger and healthier, that may not be a big deal. For someone over 60 with blood pressure issues or vascular stiffness, even mild dehydration can make the morning feel rougher than it needs to. This is also one reason some people feel better simply from making water the first step of their day. Not because it's magical, because it's supportive. Linda was 74 and never thought about morning water at all. She'd get up, start moving, maybe have coffee, maybe take medications, and only drink something later. When she finally made a simple change, keeping water at her bedside and drinking a full glass before starting the rest of her routine, she noticed something quickly. Mornings felt steadier, less head rush, less fog, less of that sense of dragging herself into the day. Now, water is not a treatment for heart disease. It does not erase serious cardiovascular risk, but it can help support a smoother start during a physiologically demanding window. And simple support matters. The practical fix here is one of the easiest on this entire list. Keep water within reach before bed. When you wake up, drink a full glass before coffee, before rushing, before anything else. Then let that become part of your morning sequence. Sit up, hydrate, pause, then continue. If you take diuretics, have kidney disease, or are on fluid restrictions, ask your doctor what amount makes sense for you. But for many people, the larger mistake is not drinking anything at all until much later. And here's what makes this fourth point so important. It ties the other three together. If you hydrate first, you are more likely to pause instead of leap out of bed. You are more likely to delay coffee slightly. You are more likely to give your body a gentler lead-in before movement. In other words, this one habit often improves the entire rhythm of the morning. So now let's step back and connect the pattern. None of these mistakes are dramatic. That's why they matter. They are ordinary habits hiding in plain sight. Standing too fast, stimulants too early, exertion too soon, no hydration. Any one of them may seem minor, but when they show up together, day after day, in the first hour after waking, they can create exactly the kind of avoidable strain older adults rarely get warned about. And I want to be very clear about something. This is not a substitute for medical care. If you have chest pain, sudden severe shortness of breath, one-sided weakness, fainting, or symptoms that could signal a heart attack or stroke, that is not a morning routine issue, that is an emergency. What we're talking about today is the quieter side of prevention, the part that happens before a crisis, the part people can actually adjust. Before we finish, I want to give you something practical you can carry into your next doctor's appointment, a simple morning heart checklist. Ask these questions. Do I have a pattern of high morning blood pressure that we should be paying closer attention to? Is the timing of my medications appropriate for my morning routine? Have my dizziness, lightheadedness, or racing heartbeat on standing ever suggested a blood pressure issue or medication issue? Is my coffee timing appropriate given my blood pressure, heart history, and symptoms? Is there anything about early morning exertion that I should modify based on my age and cardiovascular risk? Those are useful questions, specific questions, and good doctors usually appreciate them because they help connect symptoms, habits, and risk in a way that leads to real adjustments. Now I want to leave you with a simple 30-day challenge. For the next 30 mornings, don't try to transform your whole life. Just clean up the first hour. When you wake up, sit up slowly. Let your feet rest on the floor for a minute. Drink water first. Delay coffee a little. And if you exercise in the morning, ease into it instead of launching into effort immediately. That's it. Nothing extreme, nothing expensive, nothing unrealistic. Just a more intelligent start to the day. Write down how you usually feel in the 15 minutes after waking. Do you feel clear-headed, rushed, lightheaded, tight in the chest, foggy, fine most days but off sometimes? Be honest. Then follow this routine consistently for 30 days and check again. A lot of people are surprised by how much better mornings feel when they stop fighting their body's transition and start supporting it instead. There is a real difference between reacting to heart problems after they happen and reducing unnecessary strain before they do. And one of the easiest places to do that is in the first hour of the morning, when the cardiovascular system is already doing more behind the scenes than most people realize. The older we get, the more valuable, simple consistency becomes. Not perfection, not obsession, just consistency. You don't need a flawless morning routine, you need a safer one. And the encouraging part is that safer often also feels better, more steady, more calm, less rushed, less jarring. That's what good prevention usually looks like. It doesn't always feel dramatic, it often feels sensible. If you're over 60, your mornings are not trivial. They are part of your heart health, whether anyone has explained that clearly to you or not. And once you understand that, you can begin making small decisions that work with your body instead of against it. Start tomorrow with one change if that's all you do. Sit up more slowly, drink water first, delay the coffee, give the body a gentler entry into the day. Small shifts repeated consistently are often where real protection begins. If you found this helpful, subscribe and stay with me here. This channel is built for calm, practical,